Mic check. Hello everyone. Welcome to the YouTube channel of Victory IS. In this session, we shall be talking about the mountains and the important rivers of India through the map of India. So basically, we'll take up the important mountains and the rivers of India through the mapping part. So before I begin with this mapping series, let me tell you that in UPSC prelims examinations, a number of times questions have been asked from the mountains as well as the rivers. So almost every year you find a question related to these two topics. These two topics form a very significant portion of the examination that we are trying to attempt. So let's figure out how to approach this topic. What are the important areas that you cannot miss upon? And once you have built up upon those areas, then subsequently further details can be added to those topics. So let's begin with the mountains and the rivers. And before I begin with the mountains and the rivers of India, let me tell you that India's physiography, the physiography of India is divided into five major categories. So, five major categories is: one is the mountains that we will take up in detail. Then, second is the northern plain of India. Third physiographic division of India is the coastal plains. Fourth physiographic part of India is peninsular India. And fifth category of the physiographic division is the islands. So today we'll talk about these mountains, and we'll also talk about the important rivers of northern plains as well as peninsular India, from where a number of questions have been asked in the previous years. So you should know that India is surrounded by a number of countries. So let's take up one question for the prelims examination again. So from the west, India is surrounded by Pakistan. There are 7 countries that will share land border with India. So we'll start from the west, starting with Pakistan. So if you talk about Pakistan, Pakistan shares nearly 3,300 kilometer of land border with India, starting from Gujarat till Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so remember these rough numbers, approximate numbers. The exact number is 3323 kilometers, but do not remember the exact numbers. That is difficult to recall. Anyway, UPSC does not focus upon the numbers, it rather wants you to have the approximate idea. So, that is the reason I am giving you the approximate number. Then, over here, a small country, a small border with Afghanistan. So, in the northwest is Afghanistan with a land border of nearly 100 kilometers. So, to be more precise, 109 kilometers. Then, moving further eastward, we'll realize this is China, and with China, India shares a border of nearly 3,500 kilometers. Then, between China and India, there is a country which is sandwiched called Nepal. And with Nepal, India shares a border of nearly 1750 kilometers. And thereafter, we have Bhutan which is again sandwiched between China and India. And with Bhutan, we have a land border of nearly 700 kilometers. And in the east, we have Myanmar. Myanmar is also called Burma. And with Burma, we have land border of nearly 1650 kilometer, and the largest border we have with Bangladesh, which is of nearly 4100 kilometers. So there could be a question in the prelims examination related to the increasing or the decreasing order with respect to the land borders that India shares with these countries. So just remember them in increasing or decreasing order. If I write them in decreasing order, so first country would be Bangladesh, second is China, third is Pakistan, in decreasing order I am writing, and then fourth is Nepal, fifth is Myanmar, sixth is Bhutan, and seventh is Afghanistan. So Afghanistan has the smallest land border with India. It is in POK region. Right now it is under illegal control of Pakistan, and the largest border India has with Bangladesh. So these facts could be asked in the prelims examination. Just remember them either in increasing or decreasing order. Then moving further, this part is Andaman and this part is Nicobar. So this entire is Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and this is Lakshadweep Islands. This is the portion of northern Himalaya which forms the boundary between India, Nepal, and China. So it is acting as a natural boundary between India and China and Nepal as well. Then, if you know this part, this triangular landmass is called Peninsular India. And in this Peninsular India, we have certain mountain ranges that we'll talk in detail. On the west side, it is Western Ghat, and on the eastern side, it is Eastern Ghats. Then we have some other important mountain ranges. Starting from this part till this part, this is Aravali mountain range, and in the southern part of MP we have Vindhya range, which is extended up to Bihar. It is Vindhya mountains, and below Vindhya mountain we have Satpura range, which is in the northern part of Maharashtra and then some parts of Chhattisgarh and MP as well. So these are the important mountain ranges that we shall be taking up today. Okay, so let's begin with the northern Himalayas, the Himalaya. So all these things we have already discussed. The countries which are surrounding India, I have already shown you the important mountain ranges. Western Ghat, Eastern Ghat, which is highly dissected, and then this mighty mountain system called Himalayas. Right. So let's begin with the Himalayas. So in case of Himalaya, Himalaya is basically comprising of three parallel ranges. Broadly, they are parallel. Three parallel ranges. Starting from the northernmost is the Inner Himalaya, also called Greater Himalaya, and below Inner Himalaya we have Middle Himalaya. So south of Inner Himalaya we have Middle Himalaya, also called Himachal. I'll come to the details of these ranges, don't worry. And then the southernmost range is called Shivalik or Outer Himalaya. We know that these Himalayas, these ranges have been formed uh, somewhere 20-30 million years ago, and they have been formed till 8 million years ago, which we discuss under plate tectonics, and that is a discussion for the mains examination. So that formation of Himalaya we are not going to discuss here. Maybe we'll discuss that sometimes later. We are majorly focused on the informations which are important for the prelims examination. Okay, so now let's have a look at these Himalayan ranges. So Himalaya is extending from western part of Jammu and Kashmir till the eastern part of Arunachal Pradesh. So it extends from here till Arunachal Pradesh it goes. So this east to west extension covers nearly 2400 kilometers. So first thing you should know that Himalaya is east to west or west to east oriented, covering nearly a distance of 2400 2500 kilometers. As I told you, the southernmost range is called Shivalik. Then in the middle we have Middle Himalaya, and then in the northernmost part we have Inner Himalaya, also called Greater Himalaya. So if you look at this extension, you'll realize that in the western part these valleys present the range between the ranges are broader, and in the eastern part these valleys are narrower. So these broader valleys, if I draw this, so these broader valleys in the western part is called Doon. So if you have heard of something called Dehradun, Dehradun is the capital city of Uttarakhand. So these are the broader valleys which have been given a geographical term called Doon. And then these narrow valleys are named as Duars. So just remember these two terms. There could be a question again. In geography, concept based questions are asked, term based questions are asked. So this could be a question. Moreover, you should know that in the western part, the valleys are broader, and in the eastern part, the valleys get compressed and they become narrower. So it is happening because in the eastern part, the Indian plate exerts more pressure, more force. So that is why the ranges have come together. Okay, and that is why the narrow valleys, and these narrow valleys are named as Duars. And in the western part, which are the broader valleys, are the Dunes. Okay, so then we can say that another thing from this understanding, that these three ranges of Himalaya, they merge in the eastern part and they are not merged in the western part. So they are clearly visible in the western part of the Himalaya compared to the eastern part of Himalaya. So let's start from the Shivalik and let's see how the ranges have merged in the eastern part compared to the western part. Okay, so let's begin from the lowermost or the southernmost range, which is Shivalik. So starting from Shivalik, if you look at Shivalik, we change the color. So if you look at this Shivalik part, it is extended into different regions, starting from Jammu and Kashmir, then Uttarakhand, and then extending up to Arunachal Pradesh. So these mountain ranges in Jammu and Kashmir, this is called Jammu Hills. So this is a single range which is Shivalik, but they have different names in different parts. So that could be a question again in the match the following type questions. So in Jammu and Kashmir, Shivalik is also called Jammu Hills. In Uttarakhand, it is called Dhang Range, Dhang or Dandava Range. Dhang or Dandava Range in Uttarakhand. And then in Nepal, Shivalik Range is known as Churiya Ghat. Churiya Ghat in Nepal. And then in Arunachal Pradesh, it has a number of names. Actually, this is highly dissected. There are 4 important ranges present in Arunachal Pradesh, and from west to east, if I name them, this one is Dafla, this one is Miri, and this is Abor, and the easternmost is Mishmi. So in Arunachal Pradesh, Shivalik is named as Dafla, Miri, Abor, Mishmi. This itself is a question to arrange them from west to east or east to west. So just remember the names of Shivalik in different parts. The average height of Shivalik is around ranging from 600 meter to 1100 meters. Okay, then coming to the middle range, which is called Himachal. So middle range is again extended from the Jammu and Kashmir till Arunachal Pradesh. But in Arunachal Pradesh, it is merged with Dafla, Miri, and Abor and Mishmi, the Shivalik range basically. So in the western part, we'll have the names, but in the eastern part, it has already been merged with the Shivalik range, which is known as Dafla, Miri, Abor, Mishmi. Okay, so talking about the middle Himalayan ranges. So middle Himalaya starts from again Jammu and Kashmir. In Jammu and Kashmir, this part of middle Himalaya is known as Pir Panjal range. Pir Panjal range. And west of Jammu and Kashmir, we have Himachal Pradesh, where it is known as Dhaula Dhar range. In Himachal Pradesh, middle Himalaya is named as Dhaula Dhar range. And then further moving eastward, you'll reach to Uttarakhand. In Uttarakhand, it is known as Nag Tibba. Nag Tibba Mountains. Or it is also called Masuri Hills. So if you have heard of Masuri, a famous tourist spot in Uttarakhand, that is Nag Tibba mountain range. And then further moving eastward in Nepal, this range is called Mahabharat range. And then it ultimately in Arunachal Pradesh merged with the Shivalik range, which is Dafla, Miri, Abor, Mishmi. So these are the names again, just remember them. Then coming to the northernmost range, which is Inner Himalaya or Greater Himalaya. So about Greater Himalaya, so if you look at the map, there are several ranges in Greater Himalaya. The prominent ones are the first is Jaskar range. So Jaskar range is in the southernmost part. So Jaskar range forms the southernmost part of Greater Himalaya. And then North of Jaskar range, we have Ladakh range. This one is Ladakh range, present obviously in Ladakh region, UT of Ladakh. And then north of Ladakh range, there is a big range called Karakoram range. So these three forms the Greater Himalaya, these three mountain ranges present in Jammu and Kashmir part and some parts of Himachal Pradesh. These are the mountain ranges, this Greater Himalaya, which holds the important peaks of the worlds. So important peaks, as you have heard of, Mount Everest, which has the height of 8848 meter, the highest peak in the world. Then Mount Kanchenjunga, if you have heard of. So important highest peaks of the world are situated in Greater Himalayan range. So average height of Greater Himalaya is around 5500 meters. So it holds a significant height, and obviously it houses the important peaks of the world. Okay, so again, this Greater Himalaya in Nepal is known as Kailash Parvat. In Nepal, the Greater Himalaya is called Kailash Parvat, and ultimately it is extended up to Arunachal Pradesh. So if you know Tawang region in Arunachal Pradesh, that is nothing but the merger of Greater Himalaya and the other ranges of Himalaya. Okay, then let's look at the Himalayan extension in the northeast part of India, the other parts, which are oriented broadly north to south, or to be more precise, from southwest to northeast. So, there are again a number of mountain ranges in the northeast part. This part, if you look at, this is Arunachal Pradesh, and in the eastern part of Arunachal Pradesh, a hill is oriented south to north broadly is called Patkai Bum. So Patkai Bum is the hill of Arunachal Pradesh, part of Purvanchal, or call it Northeast Himalaya. Then south of Patkai Bum, you know the state called Nagaland. Nagaland has Naga Hills. Obviously, it is easy to remember. Naga Hills. And then south of Nagaland, we have Manipur. In Manipur, we have a mountain range called Bareil Range. Bareil Range is actually at the border of Nagaland and Manipur. So at this border, there is a range, Bareil Range, at the border of Manipur and Nagaland, which is roughly east-west oriented. It is roughly east to west oriented, and it is this Bareil Range which houses Loktak Lake. Loktak Lake has been already asked in UPSC several times. Loktak Lake. Loktak Lake is famous for the floating national park of the world. It is the only floating natural national park. It is the only naturally floating national park in the world, and the name of that national park is Kebul Lamjao. Kebul Lamjao National Park. It is the only naturally floating national park in the world, which is housed in Loktak Lake, and Loktak Lake is present in Manipur. So Kebul Lamjao National Park is also present in Manipur. These are the facts that you cannot forget. Then over here we have Mizo Hills, Mizoram state. We have Mizo Hills. Mizo Hill is also called Lushai Range. Mizo Hill is also called Lushai Range. Lushai. Lushai Range. Already written here. Lushai Range. And then moving westward in Meghalaya, this part is Meghalaya. In Meghalaya, we have three mountain ranges. From west to east, it is Garo, it is Khasi, it is Jaintia. So again, remember them in the right orientation. They are oriented west to east, and from west to east, if you remember, it is Garo, Khasi, Jaintia. So these are the important mountain ranges associated with Himalayan system in the north of the country. So these are the loftiest young mountains of the world. Okay, then moving further, the other parts of the country, the other mountain ranges. Let's talk about this mountain range, Aravali mountain range. Aravali mountain range. This mountain range is extending from some parts of Gujarat, then passing through Rajasthan, then it reaches to Delhi, and ultimately to it is extended up to Haryana. So Aravali passes through a number of states, starting from Gujarat, then Rajasthan, Delhi, and then Haryana. So it is again, if you look at the orientation of Aravali, it is broadly north to south, and to be precise, southwest to northeast. And if you look at the height of Aravalis, it is said to be a remnant mountain. It is said to be a residual mountain. It is an example of old fold mountains. And with time, this mountain range has weathered away. It has undergone the millions of years of weathering, and now it is a remnant mountain, a residual mountain, and the height of this mountain range is on an average 600 meters, and the height increases as you move from north to south. So highest height we have in the southern part near Mount Abu. Is it okay? So near Mount Abu we have the highest height. So you should know that the height increases from north to south. So as you move towards Rajasthan, the height of Aravalis will increase. Okay. So then there is another important mountain range present in central part of India called Vindhya range. Vindhya range. So Vindhya range, if you look at, technically it is an escarpment. Escarpment is a structure like this. So if you move from north to south, so you'll realize that once you reach over Vindhya, from the northern side it is showing gentle slope, and then in the end of Vindhya there is a sudden valley fall, and this valley is nothing but the valley of Narmada. Through this valley, Narmada river will flow westward. We'll talk about Narmada, don't worry. So this is an escarpment. In geography, such structures, such topography is called escarpment. So it is having on one side gentle slope and on the other side a steep wall like slope. Okay, so Vindhya is an example of escarpment present in Madhya Pradesh, then it is extended up to again Bihar, and roughly oriented west to east or say east to west. Okay. Now let's come to another mountain range below Vindhya. Below Vindhya, if you move in the northern part of Maharashtra, there is another mountain range called Satpura mountain range. So between Vindhya and Satpura lies Narmada river. So as I told you, if you're moving from northern side, once you fall from Vindhya, you'll fall into Narmada, and then again there is a wall like structure, and this structure is nothing but a block mountain called Satpura. This is a block like structure, so that is why it is called block mountain, and the name of this block mountain is Satpura. And south of Satpura we have another river flowing called Tapti river. We'll talk about these rivers later on. Okay, so this is how, if you're moving from north to south, First, you'll come across Vindhya, then you enter into Narmada, and then you again climb up to Satpura, and then again you enter into Tapti river. And do remember that Tapti and Narmada are the two important rivers of India which are west flowing rivers flowing through rift valleys. This valley is called Rift Valley, which has been created due to faulting. Faulting is a process in which the blocks move away from each other. Right? So, Rift Valley, these two rivers flow in Rift Valley and in the westward direction. That itself is a question for the examination. Since I'm talking about Narmada, so you should know that Narmada originates uh, near Amarkantak Peak. Amarkantak is in Maikal range. So, in Maikal range, this Narmada is originating, and in Maikal range, you should know that it is part of Satpura range. So, Amarkantak Peak, where Son river also originates. So Son flows eastward and Narmada flows westward. Okay, and Son is a tributary of Ganga river. Okay, so these are the important mountain ranges that we were supposed to talk. Now let's move to another important mountain range called Western Ghat. So this is the depiction of Western Ghat, which is starting from Gujarat and extended up to the tip of Kanyakumari. Okay, so it extends from Gujarat, then enters into Maharashtra, again obviously on the western side only, and then enters into Goa, then Karnataka, then Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So this passes through a number of states. Obviously, it is oriented broadly north to south. It forms the western margin of the peninsular India. If you remember, I told you peninsular India is somewhat triangular shape. So it is forming the western margin of that peninsular India. So in the northern side, this mountain range is called Sahyadri. This mountain range in the northern side is called Sahyadris. And as you move downward, over here at the border of Kerala, at the trijunction of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka, there is a gap over here. And this gap is known as Pal Ghat Gap. And above Pal Ghat Gap, we have Nilgiris, Nilgiri Hills. Nilgiri Hills is a beautiful landscape in Western Ghat. So, Nilgiri is also a biosphere reserve, if you know. And if you look at Nilgiri, south of Nilgiri or south of this Palghat gap, we have mountain range called Anai Malai. Anai Malai. And then after this Anai Malai, there is another gap called Sennakotta Gap. And below Sennakotta Gap, the mountain range is called Ilai Malai. The mountain range is called Ilai Malai or also called Cardamom Hills. Cardamom Hills because cardamom is grown here, cultivated here in large quantity. This hill is famous for cultivation of cardamoms, another type of spices as well. Anyway, so and this hill is called Palani Hills. Palani Hills, which is roughly southwest to northeast oriented. So, Palani Hills is present in Kerala and Tamil Nadu both. Okay, so now let's talk about some other gaps present in Western Ghat. In the northern side, this is Mumbai. On the north of Mumbai, there is a ghat called Thal Ghat. So suppose you are supposed to go from Mumbai to Nasik, so you'll have to pass through Thal Ghat. And if you want to go to Pune from Mumbai, there is another ghat called Bhor Ghat. So Thal Ghat Gap, Bhor Ghat Gap are present in Maharashtra, facilitating movement from Mumbai to Nashik and Mumbai to Pune. So in the northern side, Western Ghat is broader. In the northern side, Western Ghat is broader. In fact, if you look at this part, over here you'll find a three mountain ranges parallelly placed in west to east direction. So the northernmost is named as Ajanta Ghat or Ajanta Range. Then below Ajanta is Bal Ghat, and then below this is Harishchandra Ghat. So this itself is a question to arrange them from north to south. These mountain ranges are oriented west to east. So just remember them. Okay. Then coming further south, I told you about Nilgiri Hills. In this Nilgiri Hills, we have Doda Betta Peak. Doda Betta Peak, which is the highest peak of Nilgiri. Doda Betta Peak or Doda Betta Mountains houses the highest peak of Nilgiri, not the entire Western Ghat. The entire Western Ghat has the highest peak in Anaimalai, and that peak is known as Annamudi. Annamudi Peak. Annamudi Peak, present in Kerala, in Western Ghat. It is the highest peak of entire Western Ghat. Okay, and as you move from north to south, the height of the Western Ghat increases. So again, similar to Aravallis, as we used to move from north to south, the height used to increase, and that is why we have the highest peak in the southernmost part in Anaimalai, which is Annamudi Peak. Okay, and west of this Western Ghats, we have coastal plains that will leave the discussion for some other time. Obviously, on the eastern side also we have number of on the eastern side also we have a number of mountains on the eastern coast of India. If I draw it, on the eastern coast of India, similar to Western Ghat, we have mountain range which is highly dissected. Western Ghat is more continuous compared to the Eastern Ghat. So we have several mountains, like in Odisha we have Odisha Hill. Odisha Hill is easy to remember. Then Garjat Hills. Garjat Hills is present in Odisha, part of Eastern Ghats. And then moving southward, you enter into Andhra Pradesh. In Andhra Pradesh, we have Nallamala Hills. In Andhra Pradesh, in the northern side is Nallamala Hills. Then we have Velikonda, Talkonda. These are the names of the hills present in Andhra Pradesh. And then further south, once you enter at the border of Tamil Nadu, we have Nagari Hills. Then we have Jawadi Hills, and there is a hill which merges with Nilgiri and it is called Shebroy Hills. So, Shebroy Hills merges with Nilgiri, and this is Nilgiri is the place, or Nilgiri Hills is the reason where Eastern Ghat merges with the Western Ghat. Okay, so these are the important hills of Eastern Ghat. It is highly dissected. Why? Because a number of rivers originate from, you know, Western Ghat and drains into Bay of Bengal. So if you look at Western Ghat is steeper on the western side and it has gentle slope on the eastern side. So that is why large number of significant rivers originate from the Western Ghat and drains into Bay of Bengal. We'll talk about those rivers. And obviously, east of these hills, the Western Ghat, we have eastern coastal plains. Again, that is a discussion for some other time. So these are the coastal plains, the western coastal plain and the eastern coastal plains. We have already discussed these mountain ranges. So this is just a map for you. Do not remember all the hills. It is difficult to remember all. But first remember the hills that I have told you. And later on, once you are acquainted with these things, then later on you can add the details. Subsequently you understand those things. But for the beginning, just remember the hills and the mountain ranges that I have given to you. Now coming to the important rivers of India. And talking about Indus river system first. So Indus river, we know that Indus river originates near Kailash range. If you remember, Kailash range is the part of greater Himalaya. So north of Kailash range there is a lake called Mansarovar Lake. Mansarovar Lake. And from this Mansarovar Lake, Indus river originates and starts flowing westward. And in India, it enters into India between Ladakh range and Jaskar range. If you remember Jaskar range, Ladakh range, which were the ranges of greater Himalaya, so between Ladakh range and Jaskar range, Indus enters into India. Obviously, in the state of, not state anymore, it is the UT of Ladakh. And from the left side of the river, it is called left bank tributary. How do we look at the left or right bank tributary? You move in the direction of flow of the river, and with respect to this direction, this is left and this is right. So whatever rivers will join from this side, that would be right bank tributary, and whatever rivers join from the left side, that would be left bank tributary. The key is you need to figure out the direction of flow of river. So from the left side, there is a small tributary which joins Indus river and is called Jaskar. So Jaskar range is there and Jaskar river is there, which is a left bank tributary of Indus river. And then from Ladakh side there is a river comes out and joins Indus river on the right bank, and this river is called Shyok river. So these are the tributaries of Indus. Then from the Gilgit Baltistan region there is a river comes out, joins Indus River on the right side is called Gilgit. Gilgit. Then let's talk about the other important tributaries of Indus River. So, after Indus, let's talk about Jhelum. Briefly, we'll talk about, we'll not have a much of the discussion. We'll have all those discussions which are important mainly for the prelims examination. So, there is a Verinag spring from where Jhelum originates. Obviously, from Verinag spring, the river Jhelum starts flowing westward and it enters into Vuller Lake. It passes through Vuller Lake. And from Vuller Lake, there is a pass called Baramulla Gorge. And ultimately, over here, it takes a turn. This is Baramulla Gorge, and it ultimately enters into, from Jammu and Kashmir, it enters into Pakistan and becomes part of a bigger river called Chenab. So, Jhelum is direct tributary of Chenab. So, after joining of Chenab and Jhelum, the river remains Chenab only. So, Jhelum is the direct tributary of Chenab, that too on the right bank. Okay. Then coming to Chenab River. So, Chenab River originates in Lahore Spiti. Lahore Spiti is in Himachal Pradesh. Again, an iconic site for the tourist. So, from Lahore Spiti, Chenab River originates, moving westward and again joins Jhelum in Pakistan. Okay. Then thereafter, there is another important river called Ravi. So, you must have heard of Rohtang Pass. Rohtang Pass is near Manali. So, if you happen to visit Manali, those tourist agents will take you to Rohtang Pass. That is one destination that they take you to. So, Rohtang Pass, west of Rohtang Pass, in the west side of Rohtang Pass, Chenab River originates. So, from the western part of Rohtang Pass, Chenab River originates, and sorry, not Chenab, I'm sorry, the Ravi River originates and passing through Himachal Pradesh and then ultimately merging with Chenab again. So, after merger of Ravi, also the river remains Chenab. So, Ravi and Jhelum are the direct tributaries of Chenab. Okay. And then east of Rohtang Pass, there is another river which is originating called Byas River. And this Byas River is the river which flows through Manali. Manali is a famous tourist spot in Himachal Pradesh. So, Byas River originating east of Rohtang Pass, flowing westward, ultimately joins Satluj River. Ultimately joins Satluj River. So, Byas is a right bank tributary of Satluj River. And the point where they join, it is called Harike Dam in Punjab. Harike Dam. And from this Harike Dam, the famous Indira Gandhi Canal, which flows, which passes through western part of Rajasthan, originates here. Okay, and then ultimately Satluj will join Chenab. We'll talk about that, but before that, let's talk about Satluj. So, Satluj originates in Tibet region called Rakas Tal. Satluj originates in Tibet region called Rakas Tal and it passes through a La. La means pass, and that La is called Shipki La. So it enters into India through Shipki La. and then through Shipkila it enters into India, and ultimately Vyas river joins Satluj. The Satluj ultimately joins Chenab river before joining Indus, and ultimately this Chenab joins Indus in Pakistan. And this Indus, this voluminous river, which has been formed by a number of rivers originating in India and in Tibet region, drains into Arabian Sea near Karachi port. So this is the story of Indus river system. Then moving forward to another important river of India, moving forward to another important river system of India called Ganga river system. So Ganga river system, obviously it originates in Uttarakhand. So let's see what is happening before Rishikesh, before Deoprayag. Actually this Deoprayag is nothing but the point of meeting between Alaknanda river and Bhagirathi river. Bhagirathi river, which originates from Gangotri. Let's see what is happening with Alaknanda. Actually, Alaknanda is a big river. It has been formed by a number of rivers, a number of tributaries, and a number of prayags are there at Alaknanda. If you know something about Uttarakhand, you must have heard of a number of prayags like Vishnu Prayag, Karn Prayag, Rudra Prayag, all these prayags. So, Alaknanda is a big river in Uttarakhand, and then from the left side of Alaknanda, there is a river joins called Dhauli Ganga. And Dhauli Ganga joins Alaknanda at Vishnu Prayag. Vishnu Prayag. So again there could be a question for arrangement among these prayags, or there could be a match based question between these rivers and the prayags. So Alaknanda and Dhauli Ganga forms Vishnu Prayag. Then another Prayag over here formed by Nandini river, Nand Prayag. Nandini river forms Nand Prayag. And then there is another Prayag formed by Pindar river, Karn Prayag. So you should know these rivers and the point where they are meeting and the name of those meeting points in the name of Prayags: Vishnu Prayag, Nand Prayag, Karn Prayag. So just remember them. Okay, and then ultimately Alaknanda joins Bhagirathi at Dev Prayag near Rishikesh. Okay, and then this river starts flowing into the northern plains of India, forms the vast northern plain by the deposition of the sediments that this river brought, and then ultimately this river will drain into Bay of Bengal. But before that, let's have some important tributaries. So there is another river originating in Uttarakhand near Yamunotri called Yamuna. So this Yamuna river originates near Yamunotri and is the largest tributary of Ganga, right bank tributary of Ganga. And Yamuna itself is joined by many rivers like Chenab, not Chenab, Chambal, Chambal, Sindh, Betwa, Kane. So Yamuna is a big river which is formed by a number of tributaries: Chambal, Sindh, Betwa, Kane. So these are the direct tributaries of Yamuna, indirect tributaries of Ganga, right? Then from the western side, Ganga is joined by again important rivers such as there is a river called Ram Ganga. Ram Ganga. Then there is another river called Gomti. Gomti is a river which flows through Lucknow, if you know, the capital of UP. And then near Patna, you'll see that a number of river joins Ganga. It is called Gandak. Then Kosi. All these rivers are joining Ganga from the left side. And then from right side, there is another river joins near Patna only called Son. If you remember Son, I told you originates near Amarkantak from where Narmada was originating, right? And then ultimately this river gets distributed in West Bengal, and this part is Hooghly, where Calcutta city is situated. And this part of Ganga, once it enters into Bangladesh, this is named as Padma River. So, River Ganga in Bangladesh is known as Padma River, which will later on will merge with Brahmaputra, that we'll see in the next slide. Okay, and ultimately after it merges with Brahmaputra and then later on Meghna, and it enters into Bay of Bengal as Meghna River. We'll tell you that. Now let's talk about another important river of uh, India, Brahmaputra River. So Brahmaputra River, talking about Brahmaputra River originates again near Kailash Parvat, Kailash range, and this Kailash range where it is originating, it starts moving eastward, and in Tibet it is known as Sangpo. Brahmaputra in Tibet is known as Sangpo River. And then moving eastward, it enters into India as Siang River. Siang is the name of Brahmaputra in Arunachal Pradesh. So it is the Siang River where Brahmaputra is entering into India in Arunachal Pradesh. And then this Siang River is joined by a number of tributaries from the left side called Dibang, Lohit. These are the important tributaries of uh, Brahmaputra. They all are joining Brahmaputra in Arunachal Pradesh. So Dibang and Lohit, do remember Dikhu. Dikhu is again very important tributary, easy to remember. Remember Dhansiri, again a left bank tributary. And then from the right side, there is a big river called Subansiri, originating in Tibet region and then passing through Arunachal Pradesh. It is a big river in Arunachal Pradesh and it joins Brahmaputra on the right bank. If you remember, I told you right bank. How do we get to know right bank and left bank? Yes, so Subansiri, it is joined by Subansiri. So Dhansiri, Subansiri, Dihang, Dibang, Lohit. Do remember these names. Then Manas, flowing from the border of Arunachal Pradesh and Bhutan, Manas River again joins Brahmaputra. And then there is Sankosh River. It originates in the Bhutan, and it joins again Brahmaputra. Again a right bank tributary. Teesta originates in northern Sikkim region. Sikkim, if you know. So Teesta originates here and join Brahmaputra in Bangladesh. So Tista joins Brahmaputra in Bangladesh. Tista is again an important tributary of Brahmaputra. UPSC once asked that which of the following are the tributaries of Brahmaputra. So few of the names were given. Lohit was given, Tista was given, Sankosh was given. So these three were given, right? So remember them. Few, at least the ones that I told you, remember them. If possible, remember them whether they are joining the right bank or the left bank. And then this river Brahmaputra, once it enters into Bangladesh, it is known as Jamuna. And this Jamuna is joined by Padma. Padma is nothing but Ganga in India from the right side. And from the left side, there is another river which will join Jamuna called Meghna. And ultimately, river is called Meghna. And this Meghna ultimately drains into Bay of Bengal. So Brahmaputra and Ganga drains into Bay of Bengal as Meghna river. And the different names that I've told you, you should remember those names. Okay, then moving further, these are some important rivers flowing westward in India. So again, this could be a question: which of the following are the west flowing rivers of India? Right. So remember Luni. Over here, if you remember, Aravali was there. Aravali mountains were there. The residual mountain, the remnant mountain. So Luni originates from southwest of Aravali, drains into Run of Kutch in Gujarat. So it is not meeting the ocean or sea. So that is why it is called inland river. It is called inland river. A west flowing river, inland river. This Luni is also called Sagarmati. Not Sabarmati. Sabarmati is another river. Luni is also named as Sagarmati. Then this Sabarmati river, which flows through, if you know Gandhinagar, Gandhinagar is capital of Gujarat. So Sabarmati river flows through Gandhinagar and originates south of Aravalis near Udaipur. Udaipur is a famous city in Rajasthan. So Sabarmati is originating near Udaipur and moving westward and drains into this part of Arabian Sea. This entire is Arabian Sea, and this part of Arabian Sea is called Gulf of Cambay, also called Khambat. Gulf of Khambat. Ultimately drains into Gulf of Khambat or Cambay. Then I already told you about Narmada river and Tapi river. If you can remember this Mahi river, Mahi river originates north of Vindhya. There is a plateau called Malwa Plateau in MP in Madhya Pradesh. So Mahi originates from Malwa Plateau, flowing westward, draining into Gulf of Khambat. Then do remember these two rivers of Goa. Obviously, they are not only flowing in Goa, they originate at the border of Goa and Maharashtra, but they are primarily flowing in Goa, Mandovi and Juari. So Mandovi is the river which is famous for casino business in Goa. So remember this river, Mandovi river, very important river of Goa. And then remember Kalindi and Shravati in Karnataka. Again, all these rivers are west flowing rivers. So Shravati is the river where you will find the highest waterfall of India called Jog waterfall. Shravati. Okay. And then you also have heard of Periyar and Pemba River in Kerala. So remember these west flowing rivers, these are the relatively smaller rivers except Narmada and Tapi. Narmada covers nearly 1300 kilometers of length and Tapi covers nearly 700 kilometers of length. We will not call them as the small rivers, but other than these two, these rivers are a relatively smaller river. Mostly these rivers are originating in Western Ghat, okay, and west flowing rivers. They'll form estuary in Arabian Sea because they are meeting in the young stage, right? Then now let's talk about, very briefly we'll talk about Mahanadi. These are the big rivers, requires huge discussion, but we'll try and cover it in short. Mahanadi. Mahanadi originates in Bastar. Bastar is in Chhattisgarh, or called it. It is also called Dandaka Run. Bastar region is also called Dandaka Run. So basically, it is south of Chota Nagpur. So from Bastar region it originates, and flowing first northward and then eastward, it forms delta in Odisha. So this is Mahanadi river. The important tributaries which joins Mahanadi from left side are Shivnath, Hasdeo, Mand. This river, if I tell you, is Ib. So these are the rivers that will join Mahanadi from the left bank. And then this is the river which will join Mahanadi from the right bank. So remember, if you can remember, at least remember Shivnath and Hasdev and tell from the right side. Okay. Then coming to very important river of peninsular India called Godavari river. So Godavari is also called Southern Ganga. It is one of the largest rivers of peninsular India. So it is also called Southern Ganga. Originating in Maharashtra, the place where it originates is called Trimbakeshwar. Trimbakeshwar. So Godavari originates at Trimbakeshwar near Nasik. Nasik. So it starts flowing eastward, covering Maharashtra, obviously, then entering into Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, all those states, and ultimately in Andhra Pradesh it forms delta before entering into Bay of Bengal, before draining into Bay of Bengal. So it is joined by a number of tributaries. So from the left side it is joined by a river called Pranhita, and Pranhita has several tributaries. So Pranhita is a big river, is a big tributary of Godavari. It is joined by, Pranhita is joined by Wardha, and Wardha is joined by Vainganga, and then ultimately it becomes Pranhita, and Pranhita joins, the Godavari. So direct tributary is Pranhita, Wardha and Vainganga are the indirect tributaries. Then there is another important tributary called Penganga. So just remember Penganga and Pranhita. If you can remember this Indravati river. Again, a very important tributary of Godavari. Okay, then moving further to Krishna river. If I show you the peninsular part of India, this is Mahanadi, rather it is a smaller river, Mahanadi, then Godavari, Then over here we'll have Krishna. Yes, and then below Krishna we'll have a small river called Pennar river, and then we'll have a large river called Kaveri. We'll not talk about Pennar river, and then below Kaveri is again a small river, relatively smaller river called Vagai. Vagai, where Madurai city is situated, right? Anyway, and Pennar river, if you know, there is a famous hill in Bangalore called Nandi Hills. So east of Nandi Hills, Pennar river originates. Now, but before that, let's come to Krishna, this river, Krishna river system. So Krishna river, if you look at, this originates near Mahabaleshwar. Mahabaleshwar is a famous pilgrimage site near Pune. So it is originating near Mahabaleshwar, and then from the left side it is joined by Bhima, important tributary of Krishna. Then there is a river called Tungbhadra which joins Krishna from the right side, and then Musi is another important tributary of Krishna. The Pennar river that I told you, this one. Yes. So again, moving further, river Kaveri originates near Brahmagiri Hills. Brahmagiri Hills in Karnataka. Near Coorg, if you know the famous city. Coorg, an important hill station in Karnataka. So it starts moving eastward. From the right side, it is joined by Kabini, an important tributary of Kaveri. Then another important tributary of Kaveri is Bhavani. Again, right bank tributary. Another important tributary is Amravati. And then ultimately drains into Bay of Bengal after forming a large delta in Tamil Nadu. So this river remains in news for a number of reasons. That interstate river dispute is going on with respect to this river between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu primarily. Puducherry is also involved. Yes, because Puducherry also receives water from Kaveri river. So you'll find this river in the news oftenly, not frequent, not in the recent past. It has not been seen, but you might find this river in the newspaper with respect to interstate river disputes. Okay, so this would be all for a discussion with respect to mountains and the rivers. We have discussed the important mountain ranges, keeping in mind the requirements of the prelims examinations. A number of things could be added, but make sure that you build upon this basic idea. Once this basic idea is there, then you can easily add the details to it. So, this would be all for the day. Thank you so very much. Have a great time.